Sophia stood before the glowing gold signage of Aurum, letting the elegance of the place wash over her like perfume. Even the name whispered exclusivity. The tall glass door, framed by vine-wrapped columns, opened automatically as if acknowledging her arrival. She took a step inside, greeted by the warmth of low lighting, polished floors, and the soothing tones of live cello echoing from a corner. A hostess, in black satin and red lipstick, approached with practiced poise. "Table for one, Miss?" "Yes, by the window, please," Sophia replied, slipping her phone back into her purse as she was guided past wine walls and tables dotted with flickering candles. She could feel eyes glancing in her direction, soft, curious, the way people notice a woman alone in an expensive place and wonder if she's rich, lonely, powerful, or all three. She loved that. The table was perfect, next to the window, facing the busy city street, high enough to observe but not be seen. The napkin was folded into an elegant fan. Water was poured without asking. The menu read like poetry. She ordered the seafood linguine with saffron cream and a chilled glass of Riesling. While waiting, she texted her roommate Jane. "Guess where? I am eating like royalty again." Jane replied instantly, "Allergic to kitchens." "I swear." Sophia smiled, tossed her phone aside, and leaned back to take it all in. This was her world, or at least the one she'd carefully chosen to exist in. Cooking, cleaning, she'd left those battles in childhood. Her adult life was about control, efficiency, pleasure. The food arrived, art on a plate. Steam curled up from the pasta, the scent buttery and floral with hints of ocean. She took her first bite slowly, savoring it like a memory in the making. "God," she murmured to herself, "that's divine." She ate at a steady pace, enjoying every bite. Every glance from curious diners who perhaps assumed she was a food critic, a wealthy bachelorette, or someone important enough to dine alone with confidence. About halfway through the meal, a strange pressure bloomed in her lower abdomen. Not sharp, but firm, persistent. She shifted in her seat and placed her fork down. Another cramp. This one, more urgent. She caught the attention of a passing waiter, tall, smooth-skinned, wearing the kind of cologne that clung to memory. "Excuse me, where's the restroom?" "Just down that hallway, miss," he said, pointing past the wine cellar. "Left at the end." "Thanks." She got up, composed but brisk, navigating through clinking cutlery and murmured conversation. The hallway was narrow and dimly lit, lined with framed abstract paintings. She found the restroom locked. A red circle on the handle glared back at her. She knocked. No response. Another knock. Still nothing but the occasional muffled sound from within. She glanced around, mildly irritated now, stomach tightening. That's when her eyes fell on a door slightly ajar, swinging subtly with each shift of air. It bore a crooked sign above. "Kitchen." The letters faded and chipped. She wasn't sure why she noticed it, or why she couldn't look away. A loud clang echoed from inside, followed by laughter, then silence. She told herself to wait. Just wait for the restroom. It'll open soon. No need to act weird. No need to snoop. But the door moved again. This time not from air, but from something brushing past it. A rat. Thin, grey, frantic. It darted out from under a crate near the door and was followed by another, darker and noisier, chasing the first. They disappeared into the shadows behind the counter. Sophia froze. The elegance of Aurum cracked slightly in her mind, just slightly. She stepped back, unsure if she'd seen what she'd seen. Then, a second noise, more metallic clatter. Something dropped inside. Was this normal? Could rats just run freely into kitchens of five-star restaurants? She pressed a palm to her abdomen, another twist of pressure. But this one was mixed now, not just from digestion, from unease. A woman laughed from inside the kitchen. A sharp, tired laugh. Sophia leaned slightly, just enough to see inside. Her breath hitched. The illusion shattered. Inside. The kitchen was chaos incarnate. Steam filled the air, fogging up greasy windows. Unwashed dishes were stacked like towers ready to fall. Bowls with thick dried food clung to them like decay. The floor was wet in patches, with what looked like vegetable scraps floating in it. A bucket, possibly mop water, sat untouched near the door, its surface covered in a thin film of grease. One man scraped something into a pan with his bare hand, then wiped it on his apron. Another walked by holding raw chicken in one hand and a phone in the other, texting as he passed the prep station. Sophia wanted to close the door and pretend she hadn't looked, but she couldn't. A woman stood at the stove, her back turned, hair in a messy bun held by a string. Her clothes were stained, not the kind of accidental splash, but a tapestry of old sauce, oil, and neglect. The woman turned. Sophia's eyes locked onto her, just as she wiped her forehead with the same arm that stirred a large pot of soup. Then, in one slow, horrifying movement, she paused, scratched her armpit with the spoon, her bare armpit, and slid it back into the soup without blinking. Time stopped. Sophia's heart kicked hard in her chest, her throat clenched. She covered her mouth, stumbling backward, a wet splat underfoot. She looked down. A leaf of lettuce, soggy and grey at the edges, clung to her heel. It had been floating in the water that ran along the floor, water that now soaked the hem of her dress. That was it. She turned and ran past the hallway, past the clinking glasses and diners basking in the fake grandeur, past the candlelight and the illusion. She pushed the front door with both hands and burst into the night. The air hit her like ice. She doubled over near the curb, bent at the waist, and vomited violently into the gutter. Her body convulsed with every wave, her stomach purging the very thing she had just praised as divine. She gagged again, dry this time, then stumbled back, wiping her lips with trembling fingers. No one followed her, no one noticed it, no one noticed, no one cared when she finally straightened up. Her makeup was ruined, her breath shaky, and her illusion of safety completely gone. Her phone buzzed in her purse. A text from Jane: "Don't forget to grab oat milk if you stop anywhere." Sophia let out a hollow laugh, bitter and wet. She texted back, "I think I'm done eating out for a while." Then she deleted it before sending. She couldn't explain this, not yet. Instead, she began to walk, slowly, stiffly, like someone crawling out of a bad dream. Every step carried more weight than the last, not physical, but emotional. She felt betrayed, not by the restaurant, but by herself, by her own blind faith in elegance, appearances, and menus written in French. That soup, that spoon, that woman's face. She couldn't erase any of it, and she knew, no matter how much she tried, that she would never eat the same way again. The night after the restaurant incident, Sophia lay motionless in bed, the room dark except for a faint orange glow bleeding in from the street lamp outside. The silence wasn't peaceful, was weighted. She hadn't spoken a word since she returned home. Jane wasn't around, thankfully. Sophia didn't think she could explain what had happened even if she tried. Her stomach had settled, but her thoughts had not. As she stared at the ceiling, the grotesque image of the cook stirring that soup looped in her mind like a fever dream. It wasn't just the kitchen. It wasn't just the rats or the armpit or the smell. It was what had triggered a floodgate she hadn't realized was still holding something back. She closed her eyes, and memory overtook her like a wave. She was 10, Kelly was 7, Naomi had just turned 4. The kitchen was cold that morning, cold and quiet. The air smelled faintly of old oil and dust. Sophia stood on a plastic stool, peering into the pot with uncertain eyes. Her fingers were too small to hold the big spoon steadily. Her arms ached, but she stirred anyway. "Is it ready?" Kelly asked, standing at the doorway, hands in the pockets of his oversized shorts. "I think so," Sophia lied. He stepped closer, eyeing the watery rice bubbling in the pot. Naomi clung to his leg, silent but watching everything. Sophia had woken up that Saturday morning determined she would make rice. She had seen her mother do it dozens of times. Rinse, boil, salt, stir. Easy, right, wrong. She had put in too much water and too little salt, and the rice had started sticking to the bottom of the pot. The acrid smell of singed starch filled the room, but she ignored it. She couldn't fail. "Go sit," she told them, masking her fear with authority. "It'll be done soon." Their mother had left earlier that morning to open the market stall. Her father was away on the road, trucking across states as usual. Sophia had taken charge without being asked. As the rice continued to bubble into a mushy paste, she tried to salvage it with tomato sauce, the canned kind, bright red and suspiciously sweet. It mixed poorly. When she spooned it onto the plates, the rice sloshed like soup. The three of them sat cross-legged on the floor. Naomi blinked at her portion. Kelly poked at his with a finger. "It smells funny," Naomi murmured. Sophia forced a smile. "That's how it's supposed to smell." Kelly took a small bite, chewed, swallowed. then looked at her with eyes that didn't accuse but didn't lie either. "It's burnt." Sophia didn't respond. She took a bite of her own and nearly gagged. The texture was both soggy and gritty. The tomato sauce clung to the rice in lumps, and there was an unmistakable bitterness from the burnt bottom. Still, she kept chewing. So did they. Naomi didn't finish hers. Kelly didn't ask for seconds. Sophia scraped her plate clean even though her stomach turned with every bite. Later, when her mother came home, she tried to smile and say she had cooked for everyone. Her mother, exhausted and distracted, kissed her forehead absent-mindedly and said, "You're a good girl." But no one asked her to cook again. She didn't offer either. Years passed. The kitchen became less of a room and more of a symbol, a battlefield she had lost in once and refused to revisit. Instead, the street became their pantry. Sophia remembered the first time they bought suya from the corner vendor. She must have been 11 then. Her mother had left a small bill on the table before rushing out, muttering something about, "Use this for food. I won't be back till late." They waited till noon. Nothing to eat. Naomi had cried. Kelly had complained. So Sophia took the money and marched them down the dusty street, determined again. Vendors shouted over each other in the midday sun. Grilled corn, bean cakes, spicy meat. The scents were overwhelming. The suya man had the biggest crowd. "Get that," Kelly had said, eyes wide as the sizzling meat spat and danced on the grill. "How much for 2 sticks?" Sophia had asked the man, trying to sound grown. "150, he said without looking up. She only had 100. "Just 1 stick, please," she mumbled, handing over the crumpled note. He gave her a skewer loaded with oily meat and wrapped it in old newspaper. They sat under a tree to eat it. She split the suya 3 ways, small bites on each tongue. It was tough, stringy and cold. Still, it was better than the burnt rice. That became the pattern. Money on the table, empty fridge. 3 kids walking the streets looking for something cheap, warm and filling. Sometimes it was a kwara, sometimes puff-puff. Once, they bought meat pies that turned out to be mostly dough and air. There was one day, though Sophia would never forget, the day of the spoiled suya. It was hot, dry season hot, the kind of heat that makes the tar on the road shine like oil. They had wandered further than usual, exploring a street they hadn't walked before. A new vendor stood at the edge of a stall with a battered umbrella overhead. His grill was blackened, and the fire burned low. Naomi tugged Sophia's shirt. "That smells nice." Sophia sniffed. Spices, meat, fire. It smelled right, maybe 2, right? Like it was trying to be convincing. "How much for 2? Sophia asked. 100 naira, he said. They handed over the bill. The vendor hacked the meat from a hunk that looked odd, slimy. But Sophia didn't question it. Hunger was stronger than doubt. They walked to the nearby bench, excited. Kelly bit in first. His chewing stopped mid-motion. "This tastes weird." Sophia took a bite. Her stomach twisted. The texture was wrong, almost wet. The taste was sour. She forced herself to chew. Naomi spat hers out. "It's bad." Sophia looked at the vendor from across the street. He stared blankly, daring them to complain. His face said it all. "You bought it, you eat it, go away." She knew they couldn't go back, couldn't demand a refund, couldn't waste money. "We have to eat it," she said firmly. Kelly looked at her, lips curled. "But it's rotten. It's meat," she snapped. "It's food." Reluctantly, they finished it. Silence between each bite. No satisfaction, no joy. That night, Naomi had stomach cramps. Sophia stayed awake, guilt pooling like acid in her gut. She hadn't just failed to feed them, she had poisoned them. She promised herself that she'd never be in that position again. She wouldn't cook, she wouldn't guess, she would leave it to professionals. People who knew what they were doing. Back in the present, Sophia turned on her side and curled her knees toward her chest. Her pillow was damp. It all made sense now. Why she loved restaurants, why she romanticized menus and waiters and perfect presentation. Why her fridge only had bottled water and face masks. Why she didn't own a single pot. It wasn't just preference, it was protection. Cooking reminded her of helplessness, of responsibility too big for a little girl's shoulders, of food that made her siblings sick, of silence around plates no one wanted to finish. A knock on her door broke the moment. "Sir," Jane's voice, "You home?" She didn't answer. Jane knocked again, then entered. "Whoa, it's dark in here. Are you okay?" Sophia slowly sat up. "I'm fine. You weren't at work today." I was starting to worry. I needed a day. Jane flipped on the light. Her eyes narrowed. Are you sick? Did you eat something bad? Sophia paused, then gave a tiny nod. Jane sighed and walked over. You're really pushing your luck. Soph, I know you love street food, but come on. I didn't eat street food, Sophia murmured. I went somewhere fancy. Jane raised an eyebrow. Even worse. They sat in silence for a while. Then Jane spoke again, gently. Do you want to talk about it? Sophia opened her mouth, then closed it. Not yet, maybe tomorrow. The late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds, striping the apartment's living room with golden light. Sophia sat cross-legged on the couch, laptop on her thighs, sipping iced coffee. From the kitchen came the sizzle of garlic hitting hot oil, followed by Jane's usual hum, slightly off-key, annoyingly cheerful. Smells amazing. Sophia called out without looking up. That's because it is, Jane answered, appearing at the kitchen entrance with a wooden spoon in hand. Come taste. Sophia glanced up, raising a brow. I'm working. You're on Instagram. Research. She lied with a smirk. Jane rolled her eyes and went back into the kitchen. One day, you'll thank me for feeding you real food. I do thank you. Every day. No. I mean, really, thank me after you stop living off overpriced takeout and questionable noodles. Sophia chuckled and returned to scrolling. But beneath her amusement, a sliver of irritation twisted quietly. Jane cooked like she breathed effortlessly, joyfully. She spoke the language of food with fluency Sophia never learned. Pots, pans, ingredients, all moved in harmony under her hands. It was impressive and intimidating. Sophia, meanwhile, barely knew how to boil water. She had reasons-old scars, deeper than her roommate could guess, but pride kept her from explaining. To Jane, it looked like laziness or preference. Sophia let her believe that it was easier. That evening, over bowls of creamy mushroom risotto, Jane brought it up again. You know, it's really not hard, she said between bites. What? Cooking? You could start small. Omelette, pasta, just enough so you don't end up married to a microwave. Sophia grinned. Who says I'm not already? I'm serious. I know. You'll never really be independent if you can't feed yourself. Sophia stiffened but masked it with a sip of wine. I do feed myself. I mean with your hands, not your credit card. That stung more than it should have. Sophia leaned back, placing her fork down. Jane, not everyone finds joy in chopping onions. Some of us prefer to spend our time doing literally anything else. Jane raised her hands. Okay, no judgment, just offering. Sophia forced a smile and changed the subject. But deep inside, something shifted. A week later, she met Joseph. It was a rainy Friday, and the city smelled like wet pavement and diesel. She ducked into a book cafe to escape the downpour and found him at the counter, debating the merits of two different poetry collections with the barista. He wore a navy turtleneck, round glasses, and had a voice like a warm fireplace. She ordered. Alotzi sat near him and pretended to read. He noticed her within minutes. Have you read Tagore? He asked, gesturing to the book in his hand. I've heard of him. He smiled. You should try this one. It's like eating honey with your eyes. She blinked, surprised by the metaphor. That sounds sticky. He laughed. They talked for an hour. Then to Dot, when she left, he asked for her number. She gave it without hesitation. Their first date was at a rooftop bistro. Their second, a jazz night downtown. On the third, he invited her to his apartment, where he made red wine pasta and played vinyl records. He was cultured, kind, and curious about everything she said. He complimented her laugh, her opinions, even her sarcasm. You're rare, he told her once. Brushing a curl behind her ear, she believed him. For weeks, she floated through her days with a smile she didn't need to fake. Even Jane noticed. Someone's glowing, she teased one morning as Sophia poured coffee, humming. It's Joseph, she admitted. He's different. Jane leaned on the counter. Different like husband material. Sophia laughed. Let's not jinx it. Then came the night that would split her pride from her silence. They had just returned from a gallery opening. Joseph's apartment smelled of candles and cedarwood. He took off his coat, loosened his shirt collar, and collapsed on the couch. With a sigh. That was beautiful, he said, but exhausting. Tell me about it. Sophia agreed, slipping off her heels. Too much wine, not enough food. He looked at her with a grin. Hungry, starving. I have pasta, he offered, but I've cooked for you twice now. Your turn. Sophia's smile froze. My ... turn. He nodded, playful. I want to taste something you make. She sat down slowly. That's funny, I'm serious. She laughed, trying to deflect. Why cook when we can order something fancy and pretend we did? But I want to see you in the kitchen. I bet you look cute wearing an apron. Sophia's stomach tightened. I don't own an apron. Even better, he said. So what'll it be? Surprise me. She stared at him, panic rising. I don't cook, Joseph. He blinked. At all? No, never learned, never tried. He looked confused, as if she had just spoken another language. You mean, you can't make even one basic meal? I mean, I don't cook. I eat out. I order in. That's just ... how I live. The room fell quiet. Joseph sat up straighter, the lightness gone from his face. You're joking, right? She didn't respond. He stood and walked to the window, looking out into the night. For a moment, she thought he might make a joke, break the tension. Instead, he let out a breath and turned back. I guess I assumed it, never mind. What? She asked, voice tight. I just thought you were different. Her heart dropped. Because I don't cook. Because you talk about food, like you understand it, like you appreciate it. But you've never touched it. That's surprising. It's not a crime. Joseph, no it's not. But it's also not attractive. The words hit her like a slap. He grabbed his coat. I should go. You're leaving over this. He looked at her, expression unreadable. I need to think. And then he was gone. She stood in the center of his living room for a full minute, unsure what had just happened. Her body didn't move, but her mind raced. He had cooked for her. Twice, she had praised his efforts, flattered his presentation. But had she ever even offered to help, to clean, to participate? She'd kept her pride so high, her walls so thick, that she hadn't realized how hollow they'd become. The elevator doors closed behind her like a verdict. Back at the apartment, she found Jane in the kitchen, dicing onions and humming. Sophia walked in silently, dropped her keys in the bowl, and sat on the stool. Jane paused, turned, and frowned. What happened? Sophia hesitated, then answered quietly. He left Joseph. Why? Sophia let out a slow breath. Because I can't cook. Jane blinked. Seriously? He asked me to make him something simple. I froze, told him I don't cook, and he walked out. Jane leaned against the counter, stunned. Wow, I think he wasn't just mad, he was disappointed. Jane nodded slowly. And you? I'm humiliated. They stood in silence. Then Jane said, it's not too late to learn. Sophia met her gaze. I don't even know where to start. Start here, Jane said, sliding a cutting board toward her. With me. For the next several weeks, Sophia returned to her routine like nothing had happened. She deleted Joseph's number, but didn't talk about it. She buried the awkward kitchen moment under work deadlines, social posts, and constant deliveries from the same glossy app that had become her lifeline. Her apartment smelled perpetually of food she hadn't cooked. Plastic containers filled her trash can. Empty juice bottles lined her desk. She moved through her days like a woman on autopilot, pretending the sting in her chest was just a side effect of lost romance, not self-recanning, still not cooking. Jane asked one evening while pouring tea. Sophia looked up from her phone. I will. Just not today. Jane nodded, said nothing, and walked back to her room. But the silence that followed her steps was louder than any judgment. It started with the cramps. Small at first, barely a whisper. Sophia brushed it off stress caffeine. Maybe a rushed breakfast sandwich from that cart near her office. But then came the fever, and the chills, and the night she woke up at 2 a.m. soaked in sweat, curled into herself like a fist, her stomach wringing out waves of pain like wet cloth. She barely made it to the bathroom in time. By morning she was pale, weak and trembling. Jane found her hunched over the kitchen sink, eyes glassy. Jesus, Soph, what happened? I think something I ate. Which one? Jane asked, already grabbing her phone. I don't know. Tuesday, Wednesday. I had pepper chicken, or maybe the jollof. Jane muttered something under her breath and called a cab. The hospital smelled sterile and sharp, like bleach and worry. Sophia was wheeled into a room with peeling paint and flickering lights. The doctor, a short man with steady hands and tired eyes, ran a series of tests. You're dehydrated, he said. We're giving you fluids. Sophia nodded, barely conscious. Hours passed. She slept in waves. When the results returned, the doctor sat by her bedside. You have a salmonella infection, he said plainly, likely caused by contaminated food. Her stomach twisted again, this time from something other than bacteria. I eat at reputable places, she protested weakly. I don't eat junk. Reputation doesn't clean a kitchen, he said, or stop careless hands. You'd be surprised what I see. She didn't argue. Do you cook at home? Sophia turned her face toward the wall. I see, he said. Rest, antibiotics will help, but you need to be more careful. Sophia, very careful. Jane was waiting in the room when Sophia woke again. I brought you coconut water, she said softly. The good kind. Sophia tried to smile. It came out like a grimace. You scared me. I scared me, Sophia whispered. Jane sat by her side. You want to talk about it? Sophia closed her eyes. I thought if I paid enough, dressed the part, ate at the right places, nothing bad could touch me, but something did. Sophia nodded, and not just once. She told Jane everything about the rats, the soup, the woman with the spoon, and the vomit on the sidewalk, about Joseph, about the shame. Jane didn't interrupt. She just listened. When Sophia finished, her voice was cracked and hollow. I feel like I've been eating illusions, she whispered, and they've been eating me back. Jane reached for her hand. Come home. We'll clean it all out. Start over. Back at the apartment, Sophia stood in the doorway of the kitchen like a child at the edge of a pool she didn't know how to swim in. It looked different now, less familiar, more honest. There were pots she had never touched, spices she'd never smelled, a fridge that had become more shrine than storage. Jane moved around her calmly. We'll start small. I'll guide. You do. Sophia took a breath. Okay. Double quotes first. They cleaned. Sophia scrubbed every surface as if removing memories. The stove hissed as vinegar hit old stains. The counter sparkled for the first time in months. When they opened the cupboards, she winced at the expiration dates. Let's throw it all out, she said. Even the unopened stuff. They did. Then they went shopping. The market was loud, chaotic, and alive. Sophia walked past tomatoes that still smelled of soil, onions that made her eyes water, fish twitching in buckets of ice. Jane talked with vendors, like old friends, bargained, selected, laughed. Sophia followed silently, absorbing. Back home, Jane laid out the ingredients. Today, she said, we're making fried rice, simple, flavorful, hard to mess up. Sophia pulled her hair into a bun, washed her hands, picked up the knife, just chopped the vegetables. Jane said, I'll handle the meat. Sophia stared at the carrots. Cutting them took 20 minutes. They were uneven, stubby, but hers. She added oil to the pan too much. Jane didn't scold, just handed her a ladle. Now stir. Don't panic. Let it talk to you. The pan sizzled, spat, and danced. The smells rose like a reward. When she added the rice and soy sauce, the colors deepened. The sound changed. The food became real. They ate at the counter, side by side. It wasn't perfect. Some vegetables were undercooked. The rice was a bit oily, but it was clean, made with care. And hers. I didn't ruin it, Sophia said in awe. You made it, Jane corrected. Sophia took another bite and felt something new blooming in her chest. Not just pride, not just relief. Control. The smell of sautéed onions filled the apartment, wrapping the air in something warm and savory. Sophia stood in front of the stove, her hands steady as she stirred the pot of jollof rice. The sauce was just the right shade of red, thick with tomatoes and heat. Her brow was slightly damp, but her face was calm. Her playlist hummed low in the background, an acoustic version of an old Afrobeats hit. Jane passed behind her, tossing a kitchen towel over her shoulder and stealing a peek into the pot. Looks amazing. I added some curry this time, Sophia said, proud. And you didn't burn the bottom. Not this time, she said with a grin. I stirred constantly. Jane gave her a sigh. I'm impressed, chef in the making. Sophia laughed, pushing her gently away. Don't jinx it. But secretly, she was proud. The kitchen no longer intimidated her. It had become familiar, a space that belonged to her, as much as her bookshelf or her bed. The noise, the heat, the mess, they didn't represent chaos anymore. They were part of the rhythm. Every day after work, she came home, peeled off her shoes, and stepped into this rhythm. Some nights were loud, filled with music and spices. Others were quiet, just her and the soft simmer of something on the stove. She still ordered food occasionally, but now it felt like an option, not a crutch. She made mistakes. She burned the first batch of stew, overcooked chicken, undersalted everything at least once. But she laughed, adjusted, and tried again. Each meal carried something she hadn't tasted in years. Peace. 2 weeks after her hospital visit, a message popped up on her phone. Joseph : hey, can we talk? She stared at it for a long time. Her instinct was to ignore it. But she didn't. Not this time. Instead, she replied, I'm home tonight. You can come by. He arrived just after sunset. The apartment was clean, soft light bouncing off the walls. The scent of grilled plantains and spicy beans lingered in the air. Sophia opened the door, apron still tied around her waist. Joseph stood there, the same calm smile, but something in his eyes had shifted, softer, less certain. Hi, he said. Hi. Held up a small paper bag. I brought wine. Perfect. Dinner's ready. His eyes flicked toward the kitchen. You cooked? She nodded. With my hands, no apps involved. He chuckled, stepping in. Can I see? They moved to the kitchen, and she lifted the lid from the pot like a magician unveiling her final trick. Joseph leaned in and took a deep breath. That smells incredible. It's not perfect, she said, but it's mine. They sat at the small dining table. 2 plates, 2 glasses, the wine uncorked and breathing. He took his first bite, chewed slowly, and closed his eyes. Sophia, this is amazing. She smiled, watching him with curiosity instead of need. You look different, he added. Lighter. I feel different. He put down his fork. I'm sorry for how I reacted before. It wasn't fair. It wasn't, she said simply. But I'm not mad anymore. He nodded, silent for a moment. I didn't come back because you cooked. I came because I realized I liked you before I even tasted anything. And I left like a coward. Sophia took a sip of wine. I'm glad you came back, but I didn't change for you. I know, he said. And that's what makes this work. That night, as they laughed over dessert and traded playlist recommendations, Sophia felt something settle inside her. Not a return to something old, but the planting of something new, strong, quiet, rooted. The next weekend, she called her siblings. Kelly, Naomi, how would you two feel about a video call cooking lesson? They were skeptical, of course. Naomi teased. You still remember the burnt rice? Very funny, Sophia replied. I promise, I've changed. They agreed, mostly for amusement. Sophia set up her phone, laid out ingredients, and walked them through her jollof recipe. It was clumsy, noisy, filled with jokes and teasing. But by the end, they each had a plate of something hot, fragrant, and full of color. Kelly took a bite, nodded. Yo, this slaps. Naomi lifted her spoon dramatically. I forgive you for the rice. Sophia laughed, eyes misty. Thanks. That night, she sat on the couch, legs tucked under her, and thought about the road that brought her here. Burnt pots, fast food, stomach aches, shame. And now balance. She still kept the takeout menus in a drawer. She still visited her favorite cafe on Sundays. But now, they were treats, not lifelines. Cooking had taught her something beyond recipes and seasoning. It taught her how to pause, how to care for herself, without waiting for someone else to do it. How to rebuild trust, not with the world, but with her own hands. One morning, Jane walked into the kitchen to find Sophia barefoot, dancing slightly as she stirred oats on the stove. The sunlight painted gold stripes on her arms. The radio played a soft song. Look at you, Jane said, grinning. Sophia turned, hair messy, eyes bright. Yeah, she said, look at me. And then she added a pinch of cinnamon, stirred, and smiled to herself, not because someone was watching, but because she finally could. If you watched until the end, comment the word transformed, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends and family.